It sounds really quiet for a room filled with business people. It's really quiet for a room filled with business people. Let's start talking to each other. Who's heard the expression, your network is your net worth? Your network is your net worth. So let's just start making some money in the conversation right now. We're going to give you 3 minutes to talk to each other, find out what the other person does, and I might walk up to you with a microphone and ask you to tell me about the person next to you. So 3 minutes, and if we could have the slide for the panel on the screen, please. All right, I'm going to be that guy now. I need 2 of you to come up to the stage. 2 of you come up, 2 people that have been talking to each other to come to the stage. Nobody's hungry in here. Come on, Morton. See, people act shy. Sometimes you need that first person. Come on. All right, so I'm going to put you both on the spot. All right, so I know you, so that's kind of. So, Morton, what is this young lady's name?
Deborah.
And what does Deborah do?
Deborah is just setting up her business. She used to work for London and Partners. I think it's a project manager. Yeah. And yeah, that's what she does.
Okay, and who is Morton?
Morton helps people package their businesses, services.
Okay, so this is what today is about, all right? So one of the things, I've been doing a lot for 30 years, but I've been doing events for 30 years, and one of the first things that people ask me is, how many people are going to be there? And I'm like, you don't know how to network. Because the reality is, if you go to an event with 12,000 people, how many people can you realistically have a conversation with? That's a question. Not that many. Who wants the book? There you go. You got to want it. So I've written a book, Business Networking for Startups and Side Hustlers. You can download the book. It gives you some strategies on how to network more effectively. Networking is one of those things that you can do for free, but can change your life. And I mean that. My brother's here, and my best friend is here, so they know I'm not making this up. I used to work in the music industry, and I kicked myself because there's so many people that I surrounded myself with. I literally helped Jay-Z set up his first office, like literally went in the office and helped him set it up, right? But at that time, I was still that guy, because I've always been that guy, but I didn't realize that by networking with people, not knowing who they're going to be or where they're going to end up, but just building a relationship to build a relationship, that can change your life. So thank you. What was your name again?
Deborah.
And what was your name again?
Morton Patterson.
All right, make sure you shout them out. We're going to start the session. And again, thank you guys. Take notes. We have assembled some individuals. And one of the things that I like to do when we put panels together, we like to get people from different worldviews, okay? Because I think everyone in here is going to have a business idea. Everyone's going to be coming from a different space. And what you don't want to do is come in here and be told what you already know. We want to challenge your ideas. And more than anything, we want to make sure that when you leave here, you actually action something. It's not about coming to yet another event and taking a bunch of notes and maybe spending some money and then going and being the same person that you've always been. To know and to not do is to not know. So if you do know something, do something with that information. So the first person I'm going to introduce is Robin. I'm going to introduce Robin to the stage. In 90 seconds or less, she will tell us about herself.
Hello. So, I am Robin Williams. I am an intellectual property attorney in the United States. My practice is global. And what I like to work with is emerging growth businesses and people who are really trying to get it.
That's right. You see how we grow it in the States, right? We don't play. We don't play because there's competition. You can have a seat down there. The next person I am going to introduce, she should sit where? The first seat. Yeah, see. That's why women are better at these things than men. Let's keep it real. The next person I'm going to introduce is the lovely Irina. And she will tell us about herself in 90 seconds or less. And you're going to notice a theme when you hear Irina start talking.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Irina Alexander, and I believe that managers kill businesses, and only leaders make it thrive. So I own a neuroscience-based training company where we train high-stress performers, as well as first responders, which is police, fire, medical. We help with emotional resiliency and communicating with impact. Thank you. And we are based in the US, and we are expanding to Europe.
Excellent. Okay, so we had to have some guys on the panel, and we were honored and we are privileged to have Rick Lowe. And Rick will come up and tell us a little bit about himself.
Hey guys, I'm Rick Lowe. I'm based in London, just near Baker Street. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had a variety of businesses. My current business is mainly in fashion licensing, so things working with people like Disney, Warner Brothers, a lot of music artists to take their intellectual property and put it out into the fashion world. I've got a podcast series I've started called Maverick Mindsets, which really interviews interesting people about their life journey, growth, personal development, that kind of thing. And I'm releasing my first book next year called The Maverick's Roller Coaster, because life is a roller coaster, business certainly is. And I'm really privileged to be today. Thanks to Anthony for inviting me to be on the panel with the rest of the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's the man we all know, we all love. If you live anywhere near Ilford, you will see this man walking around with a string of people walking behind him 9 times out of 10. Cyril.
Hello. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Cyril Bekeo, and I've said this a few times. I'm the manager of the Ilford Business Improvement District. Fairly simple. We manage about 400 businesses and represent them, and the main goal is to drive footfall to Ilford Town Center. Thank you.
All right, so what happens each year, as soon as we start putting the event together. You're sitting in my seat. As soon as we start putting the event together, Cyril and I put our heads together, and as soon as I put Cyril's name on something, all of a sudden everybody wants to be involved. So he's a good man to know, and we're going to get to know a little bit about the other panelists. And the way that we're going to do this, I'll be asking them some questions. They will then give us some answers, and hopefully, as I said, I like to think that everybody's coming from a different position. All of us look old enough to remember COVID, the COVID lockdowns, and I'm not going to get political because this is being streamed. I'm not trying to get my stream cut. But what would happen is you'd watch the news and a politician would come on and say a thing from a political perspective, that from a political perspective, it was probably 100% correct. Then a doctor would come on and say something from a medical perspective that might contradict the political perspective, but it was still true. Then you'd have a sociologist, So the idea is, what we want to do is give you different thoughts, different ideas from different viewpoints, and then you can take the information and you can decide what is best for your business. That's why we've assembled people that are experienced business owners, entrepreneurs, multiple entrepreneurs and founders from different countries to make sure that we're able to give you different viewpoints. Is that all right? And then after we do that, we'll actually hand it over to you that you can ask some questions. So get your questions ready. I'm going to start with Mr. Cyril, because you happen to be on the end. So I know that you did the presentation, but if you could, like, in like 60 to 90 seconds, tell us, what is Ilford BID?
Gotcha. Good question, Anthony. A lot of the time, people wonder whether you're bidding for something like in an auction, and it's not that. It essentially stands for 3 key words: Business Improvement District. And that's a fancy way of saying we all have come together as businesses, put a chunk of money in a pot, and that chunk of money is going to be used towards a couple of things. In my world, that looks to safety, placemaking, footfall, marketing. What that means in general is more than likely we're going to deploy security officers into the town center. We're going to run events. We're going to look at marketing. We're also going to be looking at marketing the place in a mode where you're going to feel more inviting. So when you walk into a town center and see stuff like Christmas lighting schemes, that would be us.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. And as I said, the great thing about working with Ilford BID is it's the glue for this community. And a lot of communities, a lot of town centers have bids, if I'm correct.
Yeah, there's about 323 bids generating a ton of money to the UK economy. In our world, that on annually, that looks about 500 to 800K, which is really phenomenal. However, from that perspective, it's just holding that piece of glue together for everyone else. Because as businesses, their main goal is to communicate with their customers who live, work, and play in that same environment. So there's a lot of synergy in putting the businesses at the heart of the community to drive that engagement with everyone else. And it involves a lot of local government work and also national government work.
Okay, I'm going to put Rick on the spot a little bit because I see that we have Sophia here, if you raise your hand. So, Rick, you were saying that you have the Maverick Mindsets podcast, and I did mention this to you. One of the things that we're looking at is building a podcast collaborative. So you were talking about mindsets. So what kind of mindsets would you say that people need to have, like me and Sophia need to have in starting this new venture? What kind of mindsets do you need to succeed in a venture like that, or even in business?
Well, I mean, I think that's a really intelligent question, actually, because without the right mindset, I'm not sure you're going to get very far. So for all those starting out or even on the journey of having a business, I think the first thing you need is desire. The big enough, what's the reason you want to do what you say you're going to do? So desire, a vision for what you want to achieve is really, really important. You need a plan, because without a plan that you can execute, you're not really going to get your desire. And you need resilience, because whatever happens, you're on that journey, whether you like it or not. No matter who you are, you might be Richard Branson, Elon Musk, whoever, you're on that journey. And it's a bit like an aircraft taking off from Heathrow Airport and going to New York. So it's got a desire to get to New York. It's got a plan because it's got a map of where it's going to go. It's going to hopefully fly east west out of Heathrow to New York. And then on that journey, it's going to get blown from left to right. It might have to avoid a storm and go up 2,000-3,000 feet, come back down. It will change, but it's got a plan. And through that resilience, it will land in New York. And that's really what a mindset is that you need to achieve.
That's good. And I appreciate that, because what I find is in situations like this, we have this thing called success bias, right? So we're not really going to put together a panel of people that have failed. Like, most people aren't going to do that, right? Because you want someone to be able to tell you this amazing story, right? But this question is for you, Irina. Like, what or how does failure actually play into the journey? And is that something that we should think about, or should we just keep trying no matter what?
That's a good one. And I would take it probably even further, is that I encourage everybody to look for failures, because there is no true success without failure. And while we all see the beautiful picture of, yay, we made it, the truth is that, and I'm just going to generalize, we all failed quite a bit, I bet. And if you are not failing, you are not pushing yourself hard enough. And through true failure, you will find what's not working, you will be able to adjust to the market, you will figure out your product and services, and you will find true you. So I encourage people to actually move forward, fail fast, but there is a caveat. You need to be kind to yourself. Because a lot of times when we fail, we start beating ourselves up. I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, and so on. So the beauty is to learn your lesson from what's not working, that feedback that life is giving you, and keep going, because that's what truly defines success, is keep going through all the failures, through all the knockdowns.
I love that. I love that. And I was saying to someone this week, like one of the best things that happened to me was turning 50, right? Because I realized I became way more comfortable with myself, way more comfortable with my failures, and just understanding that, like, I wanted to be in the NBA. Like, there were two things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the NBA or be a senator in the States. And I didn't do either. And I could beat myself up every day about that. But the thing that you want to do is, as you said, fail forward. And has anyone ever heard the expression that a wise man learns from other people's mistakes? So you don't have to make this mistake yourself. I think it was Rick mentioned, like Richard Branson, Elon Musk. All of these people have failed and failed and failed and failed, but they kept pushing through. So I appreciate the fact that you're saying, Irina, like, we have to embrace the failure. We have to fail forward. Now I'm going to hand over to Robin. Now, when I first got in contact with Robin, I thought that she was kind of messing with me, because, like, Robin Williams was my favorite actor. And I was like, is she trying to be like a troll or something? But you were saying, Robin, that you're an IP lawyer. Could you explain a little bit what that is and what an IP lawyer does?
Sure. So I'm an intellectual property attorney, right? And so what that means is people come and see me when they have a business idea or when they're looking to protect whatever the thing is that they're doing, right? This is an important step. Like, more, I'm sure we'll talk about this more later. This is an extremely important step, particularly in this global economy, right? So say, for example, am I allowed to ask what someone does here? Anybody, what type of business do you have? It's just anybody who would like to volunteer that information. E-commerce, okay. You have an e-commerce business. And so what that means is that you have the potential to reach the world, right? And so you have, what is your business called? My Look, and is it dress shop? Ladies wear, okay. So you have your trademark, which is My Look, which is what it's called, right? And you want to protect your rights here in the UK. However, as e-commerce, you can also reach anywhere in the world, right? So say you have customers in the United States, 30% of your sales come from the US, 70% from here. You want to look at contacting an IP attorney about filing the marks here, filing the marks there. I'll try to be short because I can talk about this all day. And also, what your contracts are looking like, right? How are you protecting your ideas? If you have anything original, some of you may be creatives. I know Rick may talk about this in a little bit. Some of you may be creatives. Like, you want to find out if you've got copyrights, patents, trademarks, things that are protectable. What can you do? These are foundational things that people don't think about, but they're extremely important, especially in the long run.
Yeah, I love that, because quite often when we are starting a business, and as I said, my wife is a graphic designer, so I see it all the time. People get stuck on stupid with their logo. Like, they're like, oh, I'm going to send this out to 7 people and see, tell me which one is the best. Like, nobody cares. Like, literally, nobody cares, right? So what I would say, invest in the things and ask the questions, and make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do, but make sure you're also understanding that you don't know what you don't know, which is why you need professionals. Now, Rick, in that, we find that sometimes people say, well, I'm not going to go to a solicitor or a lawyer until I reach a certain point. So we reach a point where we start to have growing pains, right? Like, is that something that we should be fearful of, or should we embrace the fact that our business is growing?
Look, I think growth is what everybody wants, especially in business, but even in your life. You want to be growing and developing. I think the key thing about growth is you want the right growth. We've all been in businesses where we've chased revenue with the wrong customer, and it's not been long term. It might have been a disaster in some ways. So I think growth, you've got to understand what that value is you want. What is the value of the growth to you? That's the first thing you've got to look at. The second thing is, in business, growth costs money, whether you like it or not. In order to grow from a £1 million business to £5 million, you're going to be spending some money before you get the value back. So you've got to be very careful how you're going to fund that. And that's a fact. And the third bit is people, yourself. Are you ready for growth? What are you going to do to invest in yourself to grow your business? And the people you've got in your business, are they going to get on the bus and go on that journey with you? Some will, some won't. But that's a fact. And I think you're not going to get there on your own. So growth's exciting, but it's that roller coaster again. It's ups and downs. But if you don't grow and you stay the same, you'll actually wither and die, because what will happen is your competition will come along and nick all your business.
Right, that's helpful. So who here feels like they're at a point where they're facing growing pains? Raise your hand if you feel that you're facing growing pains. So hopefully that was a little bit helpful, because the fact that you're growing and you're feeling that pain, that means that you're moving from one place to another. Now, what I would challenge you is not to get caught up in this hustle culture. There's like this thing on the internet where, like everybody's being told that you need to have a side hustle or 2 or 3 or 4, right? But we're not finding the right balance. Now, I want to ask Irina about this. Like, what is your thought and view on this 24/7 hustle culture? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
May I ask questions first? All right. How many of you went to business to be your own boss and not to have a boss, and you're like tired of being an employee? Come on, raise your hand. Here you go. So it's actually one of the most common reasons for people to go into business. They're like, I am done working for somebody else. And how many of you are working more than 40 hours a day? A week, sorry. A day, I was like, a week. Honestly, was all the emails being on the phone 24/7, checking emails late at night and answering the text messages? So that's what happens, right? The hustle culture of 24/7. And probably about 5 years ago or so, I would say, yes, do it as much as you can. And now, after going personally through burnout, I would say, F no. Pardon my language. And when you open in a business, it does take work. It does take hard work. But what is important, and that's what not being said, is that it's not sustainable to work constantly. And it's more important to work smart than hard. Have you ever had a very short period of time when you need to get things done and you're like, oh my God, I actually done that and more, and I was so productive? And the other day you have the whole 24 hours and you feel like you didn't accomplish anything? So it's how you put your energy, where you put your energy, how clear you are with what you are doing. So it's more important to be strategic with your time than just hustling over and over, because it's not gonna take you where you wanna go. It's not sustainable. You're not creating a long-lasting business, and it's gonna affect your mental and physical health. So are you actually building a business, or you're building a grave in a graveyard for yourself? Wow. And your business is not gonna be here, and you're not gonna be here to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Wow. Wow. Are you building a business, or are you building a graveyard? That's deep. Like, people don't want to think about those type of things, but that is a reality. That is a reality. Like last week, they had the speakers network here, like the Next Level Speakers Conference here. And some of the top speakers on the planet were here. And one of the things that one of the speakers, I can't remember which one he said, he was like, when do you want to die? Like, if you could pick a day that you wanted to die, like, when would it be, right? So if you're in your 30s, you might say 50, 60, 70 years from now, right? And he worked backwards. He said, all right, let's just say that that's the date. How many days do you have left? And what are you going to do with those days? You don't want to be working 24/7, and you have to work smart. You have to work smart. So and I'm not trying to make it about me, but one of the things that I realized when I started really doing my business consultancy is I have to build something in with my clients that is around that sustainability. So everything that I do, and when I work with a client, everything they do, every action, everything they're doing has to meet this criteria. It has to be scalable, sustainable, repeatable, and franchisable. That's how you have to build your business. Scalable, sustainable, repeatable, and franchisable. Because if you start your business, so you have the e-commerce business, right? And let's just say this video was to go viral and everybody hit your website. And all of a sudden you had all these orders for your ladies' fashion. Would you be able to scale up quickly? All right, so that means you need to build something into your model, because otherwise you're trying to build a business that if it's as successful as you want it to be, it actually falls over. And you may have said yes and said, well, I could do that. It would mean that I'd have to work harder for, every day. I'd have to work more hours for 3 months. But is that sustainable, right? And then once you build that business, you want to make sure that you have a model that is documented, that is repeatable, because most businesses, and I'm sure Rick and everyone here will agree with this. Most businesses, the fundamentals are all the same, and once you master the fundamentals, you can repeat that. But if you don't have it documented, what are you going to repeat if it's all up here? So if you are digging that grave instead of building that grave instead of building that business, you might build a business that no one can even take over. You can't even pass it over to a child because it was all in your head and it dies with you. So that was really encouraging, and I like that. And I hope everybody takes that away and it helps you reflect on what you're doing and hopefully do things a little bit differently. And this is where it will probably come to someone like Robin. So I don't even have to ask the question. I'll just leave you with this one.
You don't even have to ask. I was just about to say, also, if you are the business, right, the thing is you, then how can it possibly go on, right? If you don't have your intellectual property secured, first of all, how can you monetize it globally? How can you franchise it, right? If your IP isn't together, that means you can't do licensing. If your contracts aren't together, that means that you can't collateralize this business if necessary. We won't start talking about finance because that's the 200 level class, so we won't start talking about that. But if you don't have everything in order such that you have to excuse me, I like to get up and walk, so it's hard for me to stay in this chair. But if you don't have your everything together, right, from your contracts to, I'm going to speak from the United States perspective, to your business entity, if it's a corporation, if it's an LLC, if you don't have whatever the thing is that you do, we keep going to a dress shop. Can we talk about another type of business? Anybody? Coaching, business coaching. Okay, this is a good one. Life coaching. This is a good one, right? Because you are the business, right? And so everything that is the business is you. And so what do you do? How do you replicate this, right? How do you pass that along? Like, what type of services are you offering? Are you considering, so I do business level coaching, and I'm just gonna go like general with this, right? Are you offering, track one? This is Anthony's good at this, by the way. Are you offering like different tracks, different products, different services? How are you marketing these things? How are you trademarking? And I say trademarking because we want to be in a situation where if you needed to, you can sever these things from the business, right? Away from yourself, such that when it's all said and done, if you decide to step away, you can sell the business. Or if you decide to, pass the business on, you can. But in order to do that, you have to have all of these foundational things established. Would you like to say anything about that, Rick? Because I know you do a lot of licensing.
Yeah, I think it probably comes back to what Anthony said earlier. When you're growing, you've got to keep the back wheels intact. The front wheels might be going so quick on the car, the back wheels have got to keep up. In my personal experience, I'm in the process of hopefully getting my main business ready for a trade sale, and that's a 3-year plan. It doesn't happen overnight. And all the stuff you've got to do, like, what you've got trademark, what you own where, all your collateral in your business, all your financials, all your HR contracts, everything like that. You've got to go through and have all the boring stuff put to bed to make sure the exciting stuff creates the right values. It's really important.
That's, again, we're talking about things that are like, might be a bit daunting to someone who's just here and saying, well, I'm like just trying to start a business. You're talking about all this global licensing, and what about local businesses? Because there is a saying that I like, which is think globally, act locally. Think globally, but act locally, right? So what are you doing locally? And that's one of the great strengths that we have with having someone like Cyril on this panel, because Cyril is based right here. He's doing things locally. So your e-commerce business, who else here? You have the coaching business. Who else here wants to tell us what their business is? Cleaning business. You need to talk to this man. Over how many businesses are in the Ilford BID?
400.
400 businesses.
Yeah.
And this is another thing to consider. Like, do you want your business model to be person to person, or do you want it to be business to business? Because if you could, say, Cyril, I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee and let's talk, and all of a sudden you have access to 400 businesses, this day changed your life, right? But Cyril's on the panel. There's someone in this audience right now that might be able to give each of you that access to a bigger pot than just the one-on-one. So I'm going to hand over to you, Cyril, and you can talk about some things that you do locally for the BID and what kind of footfall the Ilford gets, et cetera.
Of course. Thanks for the opportunity. I think great to hear whatever was said by all the panelists in terms of building a new business, work-life balance, and just taking care of yourself. I think for us, it's pretty similar. The majority of the businesses within our network are SMEs, so people like yourselves who have just come together and said, I want to start something up. And that is a big, big task. From that perspective, it's also recognizing that a lot of their engagement are with everyday people. And growing that network, realizing where we are as a locality. We're on the fringes of Barkingside, Romford, Stratford. We're not in competition, but we're pulling from the same resource of people in terms of the market potential that's available. And on top of that, you have other factors. So in a local area, not only are you competing with the businesses that are next to you, right now you're sat next to other people, you're also competing against things like the weather. Things that politicians say, which will make you act. So we've noticed a change in trend of spend just based on the announcement of the budget. People are a little bit more apprehensive and they're thinking through it. Things that happen and change our lifestyle. COVID absolutely changed consumer behavior. So we went from, I want to spend, to, I'm not so sure, so I'm going to save a bit more. I'm going to hold a lot more in reserve. And when I spend, I'm going to spend it on things which I really care about. So things like price point, things like quality are really important to people. And that's why, in a local environment like this, meeting all of you and just finding out what you do, finding out the businesses that I represent, figuring out what has the right price point, the right quality that a person or a town center could like, is really quite key. Generally, on the high street, you will see a lot of people, and I keep coming back to this point which I made earlier. As much as you see people, it's about conversion. We do know the amount of spend we have within a local community, so from our perspective, some of the things that we try to do, and I'm going to be very quick to finish off, is drive events. So we have a Christmas light switch on event which we host every single year. The main goal of that is to illuminate the high street with fixtures and fittings and a lot of free stuff, purely to get people to come in, walk around Ilford, and walk past a lot of our businesses. On average, we're looking for about 40,000 people to get in. And if each of them, you can do the math yourself, are spending on average 58 quid, that's my job done. Essentially, the rest of the job is for the businesses to figure out how to get them into their store as they're walking through the town center. So That's basically where our focus is at the moment for the next 50 season. We'll see how it goes.
That's excellent. Now, what might happen now, which quite often happens, you're hearing all this thing, you're like, he's the person I want to network with. He's the person that I want to connect with. And I would just encourage everybody in here, don't always look to network up. Sometimes be that person that's pulling somebody else up. Because it's so easy to say, well, Rick, he's got a book coming out, he's got a podcast, I want to connect with him. But the guy in the sweat top next to me, don't want to connect with that person because they don't look like they can offer anything. So I talk about this a lot, the 6 degrees of separation. Like, you don't know who that person knows. And especially in today's environment, you don't know who that person is. You have tech millionaires and billionaires who walk around in T-shirts, right? So try to be the person that pulls somebody else up. We're going to move into the audience Q&A. So I'm going to come to the bottom of the stage, and if you have a question, you can raise your hand. However, you've already seen I'm that guy, right? Right, so it's a question, right? Don't do that humble brag thing. Well, if you've just got a contract for £500 million and you have a choice between buying a Lamborghini and what do you do? No, we don't want to hear that. Just ask a question. Let us know who you're directing the question to, and they will answer the question. Can we have the LinkedIn slide up at the back, please? So raise your hand. I saw this gentleman first. Thank you, Yanni.
I'm up again, and the question is directed to every one of you and the panelists. Great work, Anthony, thank you. My question is, when you were starting, what is the thing that motivates you to keep going every day? And what is those things that if you were to tell yourself 5, 10 years ago, you will do better? Thank you.
Let's start with Robin.
So for me, I started practicing law because I wanted to help people, actually like the people in this room. I wanted to make sure that everybody had access to the things that sometimes the privileged or the elite only have access to. And for your second part of your question, as far as what I would have told myself 10 years ago, you'll find this funny. I would have told myself to see somebody like Irina, because you need that. I am one of those people who works, 16, 18 hours a day, or I did, and I did not focus on the mental health aspect of things, and that takes a toll on your physical health. And so I would have told myself to have a little bit of balance and incorporate somebody like this in my life.
You want to add something? Yeah.
I'm gonna be brutally honest. Back in the days when I had my first business and it was in a very man-dominated industry, I was driven by ego. I wanted to prove that I can do that. And while it created success, it also brought me to my knees and a burnout. And whereas I don't want to do it anymore. It's not worth the money. And that's when my life changed. And these companies that I'm running right now, it's a passion project because I truly believe and see the result we are providing for people in the high-stress professions, where they get in their life back, when they come back and say, thank you for, we're not getting divorced, we are moving forward, thank you for saving the family, my relationship with my kids, and so on. So that's what now inspires me to wake up every day and do what I do. And what I would tell my old self is, the ego, EGO, drop the E, and let's just go.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Yes, hi, my name is Marianne. My question is to Robin. I wanted to know in terms of intellectual property, I think the reason I'm asking these questions first is because I work for Levi's. They're the first company that invented jeans, but they no longer own the patent, and now everybody else can manufacture jeans themselves. So my question to you is, when you're trademarking a design or a logo or a name, how long does that contract last? Is it something that you have to update every 10 years? Is there a time frame for that? And also, do you need intellectual property in different continents and markets, or can you just have one contract that will cover you for the whole world?
Okay, so to answer your first question, as far as your trademark goes, right? That is something that is going to be tied to use in commerce. Like, this is for everybody, right? A trademark can be lifelong, like Levi's, even though they no longer own the patent for the jeans, they still own the goodwill and everything that comes with that trademark. And that's really what they're relying on at this point. So you can own the trademark in particular jurisdictions as long as you are using the mark in commerce. That is something that is absolutely jurisdictional, meaning if you have a mark in the UK and you want to do business in the United States, then you have to file for trademark protection in the United States. Or if you want to do business in Singapore, you have to file for a trademark application in Singapore. Now, I'm assuming you're a designer? Okay. So take your drawings, something like that, because you do a sketch before you do a design. Your drawings and things like that can be covered by copyright. And copyright is something just because of the Berne Convention, wherein there is a limit on the right for the copyright, but it doesn't require the same jurisdictional approach like trademark does, meaning if you have a copyright here in the UK, we will honor those rights, throughout the globe, generally. Like, not everywhere, but for the most part, right? And so that's kind of like the two-pronged approach to doing something like that. Also, I want to kind of incorporate Rick into this because I really think it's important that you guys understand the purpose of it all, right? Levi's is Levi's. We've established that the patent is gone, so they can't stop anybody from making jeans. But because they've established so much goodwill in that name, and for you who have the cleaning business, right, you've established so much goodwill in the quality of your product and the name, then you can go to somebody and license your products for other things. And Rick, you can pick that up.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, we have to go to Disney and give them a business plan, and give them a lot of guaranteed funds for them to give us a license to go out and put Mickey Mouse on a T-shirt. And also, they control the approvals, so they have to, everything we design against their style guide, so we can't just redraw Mickey Mouse. It's got to come from their assets, their IP. We have to get that approved, and we have to show them the quality of the product, and we have to be fully compliant where in the world we manufacture it. So that's Disney, right, which is right at the top of the tree in intellectual property, entertainment IP, I guess. But but back to what you were saying earlier, it's a good thought process or discipline to take control of your assets, what you're creating, as early as possible. Because at some point, someone will try and take them from you. That's a fact, especially once it's out there on the internet.
Yeah, if it's done well enough, people will knock it off. That will happen. That 100% will happen.
So we have time for one more question, but I just want to say something. The three people here, do you know how I met them? LinkedIn. LinkedIn. So I would encourage everybody. LinkedIn is the business platform. It's a good way to form business relationships. Make sure that you connect with me on LinkedIn, and make sure that you connect with each other on LinkedIn. That way you can build your network. And we had a last question, please.
Thank you. This is a question for Irina. When you said building a business or building a graveyard, that was a really powerful statement. Could you give some useful tips? Because this is what I'm sort of like struggling with, use of time. How are you strategic with your time in terms of being an entrepreneur?
Wow, that's a loaded question, and I'll do my best in a couple minutes. So I'm famous for not popular opinion. I don't believe that if you are one-man shop and you're a solopreneur, you're a business. Because if something happens with you tomorrow, the game is over. So you want to start with the end in mind. What do you want at the end? What is your company going to look like? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to pass it to your kids? Are you going to acquire it? Whatever that is, are you going to franchise it? So start always with the end in mind, and very few people actually do. They just do with day to day. And therefore, they just thinking about what I'm going to do now or what I'm going to do tomorrow. Start with the end in mind, and then figure out the plan backwards, you know, from whatever 10 years, 20 years, to 10-year plan, to 5-year plan, to 1-year plan, then monthly and daily. So figure out what exactly needs to happen in order for you to go where you want to go. And then you can kind of be more focused on what you need to do. And also, I truly believe in coaching. So if you do have, if you are challenged by that, work with somebody who can help you to figure it out, because coaches usually keep you accountable and keep you focused. So definitely, I was the person driven by ego, already said that. I was like, I don't need anybody, I got this, and golly, I struggled. So now I'm a big opponent of get help. And actually being vulnerable and saying, hey, I need help, makes you strong, because it takes so much courage to say, I don't know it all, and surround yourself with people who will actually help you, lift you up, and you will go much faster where you want to be.
Excellent. I think that's really encouraging. Could we give all of our panelists a round of applause as they make their way back to their seats? Thank you so much for each of our panelists. And I just wanted to let everybody know, you should have an Expo magazine. If you don't, you can pick one up. All of our panelists' information is in the magazine. Make sure that you reach out to them. Make sure that you connect with them, because it's about connecting. Today is all about connecting. I am going to give a few more people the opportunity. Usually by the second time, people know where I'm going and they start running to the stage. I'm going to give a few people the opportunity to do a 90-second pitch. Now,